All right, we are live with Chris Caulk. He's a home inspector that I've been working with for a very long time. And I'm just trying to go live here on Instagram. It looks like we're good on Instagram. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. So I don't know if I really had a chance to let you know. I know that I mentioned I was doing some industry interviews, Chris, but that's what I'm doing, a series, trying to do it every week. Every once in a while I might miss a week, but I've been doing it for a little over a month now. So the last one we did a title rep and she recommended to do an inspector, and you were the first person I thought of. You're definitely the most thorough and everybody loves you, and I'm super excited to have this conversation. So, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you so you can tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the business.
Okay, my name's obviously right there, Christopher Caulk, owner of Alamo City Home Inspections. So, in high school and college, the only work there was in Hawaii was construction. And after doing that, I joined the military for 20 years. And then when I got out, there wasn't anything for mercenaries. So I figured, well, let me go ahead and get back into what I used to know. And but my plan was to flip houses. I wanted to inspect them, make sure I'm not buying a lemon, and then flip them. But I decided I don't want to do the flip part. I just like doing the home inspection part. And then here I am, started my own company, been doing it for about 15 years now. And here in the last couple of years, I've been litigating cases against bad inspectors. So the court's been calling me in uh, for that, which is interesting and stressful.
Oh, yikes. Yeah, I could only imagine. And I know that you've been doing that for, I feel like a couple years now, right?
Yeah, for a couple of years now.
Oh, man. So yeah, I bet you you do have a lot of crazy stories. I'm
Mhm.
excited to get into those. So first and foremost, how do you help home buyers? Like what is a home inspector? What's your job
Yeah,
essentially?
so in order to protect buyers from buying lemons or buying even brand new houses that have gotten overlooked by the city inspectors who are just totally overworked, uh, people should hire a third party inspector and not just me, whoever, and get them out there because I tend to find so many things that either the builder missed or the city inspector missed, whoever their superintendent or whoever uh, the builder's head guy. They have so many different titles now, but whoever that super is, they just miss so many things because there's too many houses going up at the same time that they miss a ton of things. But with older homes, you get a lot of stuff that people try to hide. And, you know, because I come from a background of renovations and all that stuff there, I kind of have a pretty good eye for, I wonder what happened here, whenever you see a certain type of renovation. When you see like an older ranch home that should have had a wall and now it's gone, it's like, wait a second, let me get up into the attic and see if they put a header in. And then I'll see this weird undersized header. It's like, oh, goodness. But anyway, people really should get an inspector to prevent themselves from buying basically a money pit.
Yeah, long story short, that's a perfect answer.
Mhm.
And that is a very interesting point that you made on the new builds because I didn't even think of that. But obviously, I always do tell my buyers to use inspectors on the new builds too. But I didn't even think about going over those topics with you. But that's, yeah, the new builds are sometimes they're great, other times they're not.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And so you kind of covered it a little bit already, but like why should somebody get an inspection? I know you said there's quite a few things that you come in like you've seen, but is there any other particular reason that somebody should?
Yeah. Just I tell people that you can use the inspection report for three things. And one, you can use it as a, well, let's say you get the house inspected, the things that I find were not disclosed, so they can use it as a, hey, look, I want to get out of the deal now. You didn't disclose any of this stuff. So you can use it to get out of the deal. One. The second thing you can use it for is a renegotiating tool. If something wasn't disclosed, you can say, hey, look, this roof has hail damage. Can you guys call your insurance company and replace it? And then I'll buy the house, and And then of course that's great because you just got your roof replaced, and then you just bought your house. And the third thing is, let's say, regardless of everything that I find, you decide to buy the house anyway. Well, now you have a to-do list. So you can use it to knock everything out. So when you go to sell, you'll have everything taken care of and things should go pretty smoothly.
Yeah, that's a really great point because the to-do list and even like home maintenance tips that you provide are so valuable.
Mhm.
I love I love seeing that whenever we go and sit with you and you kind of go over everything. I love it. Which kind of brings me to another question around like if you suggest a buyer being there with you while you're doing the inspection or what you typically recommend.
Yeah, I think it's always good to have the buyer there, but not necessarily for the whole thing. Because the first hour, I'm usually either under a house, in an attic, on a roof. We're not going to be able to talk until I come down and get inside the house. So I would say, after about an hour, hour and a half, then show up, and I should be kind of on the inside, and I can get them caught up, and they're not having to stand around for an hour and a half waiting for me to get off the roof. But yeah, definitely, I prefer them to be there because there's some things that you can show them in person that you just can't explain with a photo and an explanation. So when they see it in person, I can explain it to them, and then they get the report, and then they can say, "Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that makes sense. I know what it is." And yeah, so I definitely recommend them being there.
Awesome. And then the realtor as well. What do you think the realtor should be there?
Yeah, yeah, I have no problems with the realtors being there because then it's just one less kink in the chain. So
Mhm.
after I explain it to the buyer, then they have to try to explain what I explained to them to the realtor. If they're all there, we can just all learn at the same time, and then they can put together their repair amendment and ask for whatever it is that they want to ask for.
So true. Awesome. I love that. And I always do this, recommend the same thing, like going towards the end because it's just a lot less boring.
Yeah,
When we're following you around and it's a lot takes I feel like it's probably quicker for you to go versus the buyer following you around and asking questions while you're doing it.
yeah, and it's a lot less distracting too. So
Yeah.
let's say when I'm on the outside of the house and I'm in the attic, I'm looking at certain things. I see some things that I'm like, wow, I make mental notes. I'm like, I need to get on the roof and see if there's a flashing damage or something because I can see moisture or something. So I might have 5 different things that I'm like, okay, once I get out of the attic on the roof, I need to look for this, that, and the other. But if I come out of the attic and someone's like, "Hey, can you take a look at this?" Like, no, no, I've got things on my mind right now. You're distracting me. I'm on a roll, So, but that's usually the hardest part. Once I get in the house, all the hard stuff's done, and then it's just the inside. You just flow right on through. Yeah.
That's so true. No, that's really really good points.
Mhm.
Um, and then I guess are there any items that you come across that are like deal breakers or that you would say like, "Hey, stay away from." I know you said something about the roof, but like what are the deal breakers that buyers should be aware of?
Yeah. So now, with the inspector hat on, I can't call anything a deal breaker, because I'm not allowed to say something like that per the Texas Real Estate Commission. But take this inspector hat off, and I would say that there's 5 things that you really need to be aware of and really consider when you going forward with the purchase of the house. And that's the foundation, the roof, the electrical, plumbing, HVAC. So if there's something wrong with the roof, you can easily look at about a $10,000 to $20,000 repair if it's hail damage or something. Foundation, everything starts there. If something's wrong with the foundation, you got a foundation crack, you got a foundation issue, easily upwards to anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000, depending on what they have to do. So foundation, roof, electrical. If you got aluminum wiring that's falling apart, and knob and tube wiring that all need to be replaced by code, then you could easily get into tens of thousands of dollars. And the same with plumbing. Plumbing, gosh, I did a house, a relatively new house, but the house had settled like this. So instead of the waste drains flowing this way, because the house settled that way, it ended up leveling the waste drains off, so nothing was flowing. And I explained it to my clients, hey, there's a lot of settling here. I'm getting some backups in the waste drains. Chances are you don't have a proper slope anymore. But they went ahead and bought it. And a couple of months later, they called and asked if I can come out and take a look because all of their waste drains are backing up. And so they ended up calling a plumber, and They found out pretty much exactly what I told them happened. And so they're looking at roughly about $50,000 to $60,000 worth of plumbing repairs because they have to tunnel under the house, redo all the plumbing so it has a slope, and then bury it all back. Yeah, so it becomes a nightmare. So foundation, roof, electrical, plumbing, and then the AC system, HVAC. Anything wrong with the AC and heat, you can easily look at $5,000 to $10,000. Those are the big ones. Everything else fixable, but those are the big ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and is there anything that I mean, so when I go with a buyer, we look for certain things like maybe around the foundation if there's a crack in the wall. But is there anything else that you could like see visually versus before like submitting an offer that you would suggest taking a look at?
There is some, well, so for instance, if there's something major going on at the foundation, there's some things that you can spot pretty easily. Where you can, if it's a brick house, you'll see kind of cracks going, not just step cracking through the mortar joints, but you'll see cracks going through the brick itself, and then you'll see it widen as it goes up. And if it starts to widen and you can fit your hand in there, chances are there's a major foundation issue going on. Another thing is when you get into the garage and you're looking at the exposed garage floor, sometimes you'll see these little thin cracks here and there. Those are just what they call shrinkage cracks. If they're a 1/16 of an inch or less and there's no dislocation, it's just shrinkage. But if it's more than a 1/16 of an inch, let's say it's an eighth of an inch and there's a little dislocation, that's a through and through crack. That means it's already cracked all the way through and it's starting to shift. And it's at the beginning stages just filling. So that's something you could clearly see when you either on the outside or in the garage.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know about the garage. Those are really good tips.
Mhm.
Nice. And I know you've seen a lot in your years of doing inspections. Can you? I know there might be more than one, so you can tell us more than one. But what's the like craziest thing there? What are some crazy things that you've seen even lately?
It's yeah. So with older houses, you're going to see a ton of crazy things, especially the old Victorian pier beams and stuff like that. Always something crazy there. But with new construction, you would think you wouldn't catch anything in new construction. But just recently, about a month and a half ago, I won't name the builder, but one of the higher end builders. So I go out to inspect this house. It's a brick house, beautiful house up on TPC Parkway area, overlooking the Marriott. I mean, beautiful. Man, it was a nightmare of a house. So brick house, and just for the heck of it, on every house with brick, I always push on the brick to see if there's any kind of movement. And so you got brick coming up this way, you got a garage down here with a roof on top, and then a brick wall above the roof. So I get up on top of that roof and I start kind of just pushing on the walls, thinking there's not going to be any movement. Not only did it move, but I pushed on this wall, it moved in and out. And it was like all these things started crumbling. And then the other wall that kind of goes down the side of the house, it just, let me see if I can get it on camera. It just kind of split and pulled away like this, and I'm like, what in the world? The whole wall was about to just like 2 stories, high of brick was all about to just fall away from the wall and crumble down. And so of course, whoever did the brick veneer didn't put enough brick ties or didn't put any brick ties because this moved way too much for having any brick ties. But that was crazy. That was just a month and a half ago. Brand new build.
Oh
God,
my gosh.
yeah.
So what was like the remediation for that?
Take all the brick down. They had to do it all over again. So what they did do was the build, because I told them chances are there's lack of brick ties or no brick ties. And so what of course the builder was like, that can't be. So what they did was they removed a couple of the bricks, they grinded out a couple of the bricks, and then they got a camera in there to look back behind the brick, so you could see in that wall cavity, and you couldn't see any brick ties. From that vantage point, you could look probably about 6 to 8 feet in either direction, and there's none. And there should be roughly every 2 feet this way, you should have a brick tie, and every roughly 30 inches this way, there should be a brick tie horizontally. But looking 8 feet that way, and 8 feet this way, and 8 feet that way, and no brick ties. So no wonder. So
Wow.
amazing.
So that goes to show how, like, why you need to have an inspection, even on the new builds. Like, it's
Oh
just
yeah, and this one, there's another one I mentioned to you before we got on that I teach a first time home buyers course, and I have a little slideshow that I share on some of the things I found in my career. But there's another house I inspected, brand new build, and the city had already inspected. It was I was doing the final inspection. Everything was supposed to be done. Everything was supposed to have been inspected. Everything was passed by the city. So I go in, and this was a framing, not the final. This is the framing inspection before the drywall goes up. So I go in. Besides all these little things, I get to the back of the house, and then I just noticed a couple of things that are just mind-boggling. So on the back of the house, they have in San Antonio or in Texas, you're required to have at least one hose bib minimum, for the yard. So they had a hose bib on the right rear corner, but then they put the AC right up against it, so you couldn't hook a hose up to it. So uh, so you can see the AC concrete pad. But when I got there, someone I guess had already caught it. So they figured, okay, let's put the AC on the other side where it was supposed to go in the first place. It was on the plans to go on the other side. So they they took out the AC. The concrete pad was still sitting there, but they poured the new one on the other side. But the problem they ran into is like, okay, well, how do we get the AC lines over there now? Because everything got framed in. So what they did was, instead of running it straight up through the attic, coming across the attic and coming all the way back down, that entire back wall of the house, they notched every one of the 2x4s and ran the suction lines, the refrigerant lines. So they notched out of a 2x4, there's probably about an inch left of framing member, and they notched it all the way across the back of the house from one side of the house to the other. The only thing holding up the back of the house is an inch on each one of the 2x4s going all the way across. I couldn't believe it. And then they got to the door, they went up around the door, came back down, and went back over. But I'm like, what is holding this house up? Why has it not fallen? And all of this was approved. The framing inspection by the city was done and everything. And yeah, couldn't believe it.
oh my gosh, yeah, that has me speechless. That's wild. So
Yeah,
how long ago was that?
that was a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
And it
Stuff
wasn't,
you can't make up, right?
you can't make it up. And it's pretty, and the pictures don't tell a lie. I have photos of it that I share on a slideshow. I don't mention who the builder is, but a reputable builder, and it's not one of the, the, you know, let's just say you got a bunch of different track builders. You got the ones that are known to make mistakes like that. Then you got the ones that are not known to make those mistakes. So I'm just kind of queuing in on these because these are easy pickings. You'll find stuff with those guys all the time. But these guys up here, you're like, what? What are you doing? You guys have a name, everyone knows your name. So
Oh my gosh, it's
amazing.
just wild.
Hmm.
Oh, you gotta love it.
Yep.
Oh man. So yeah, after that I'm like, I don't even know what I was gonna ask next. Well, I guess the next question that I had was if there was any like unexpected things. It's probably was one of them, but like, is there anything that's more common that might be unexpected for a buyer? Like something that you could be like, yeah, this is gonna. Well, I guess maybe it's more of like what's expected. Like, this is going to be something that'll come up on pretty much any inspection from like a house built in the 1970s, right? Something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So, actually you kind of that's a pretty good lead in. Houses prior to 78, were built with asbestos. So more than likely you're going to find under the carpet, you're going to find asbestos tiles there. And one way you can peg them are, instead of 12 by 12, they're usually 8 by 8 inch, tiles. They look like little linoleum stick tiles. But yeah, you just want to don't mess with those. You got to get those removed biohazardly, and you can't just take them to the dump. But yeah, so definitely in houses in the early 70s and prior, you're going to find those types of things. You're going to find asbestos siding as well on some of the older houses. Now, asbestos siding in itself is fine. You can have that still because it's not in the house. It's not getting cracked up. You're not breathing in the vapors. It's outside. But as long as the siding, if it's asbestos, if it's encapsulated in paint, it's fine. Just don't disturb it. Or you could just put siding over it if you want. But that's something I see all the time. Older homes, when you start getting back, to the old pier and beams and the King William district and things like that, where you got those old, 100-year-old homes, knob and tube wiring. I come across that even now, and in most cases, Texas is an as built type of condition state, where if you buy a house, if it was built in the 50s and it has a lot of things from the 50s that aren't the current code, they don't have to bring it up to the current code. So that's like one of the misconceptions people have, that, well, it doesn't meet code, so they need to fix it. No, they don't. Except knob and tube wiring. If there's knob and tube wiring, you can't sell it like that. You can't have knob and tube wiring. It's illegal to have it now. So if you're aware of it, you're supposed to remove it. But I come across it all the time. Or I'll come across where they'll make it appear that they replaced the knob and tube wiring. So they'll have a new panel, they'll have all this new Romex coming out of the panel and going up through the wall. But then when you get into the attic, I can see where they spliced into the knob and tube, because it's a lot cheaper. So they make it look like they fixed the problem, but they actually didn't. But of course, some of the city inspectors don't get in the attics. They'll just look and say, oh, yeah, they must have done it. Look at all the wiring, all the new wiring.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you brought that up about the code,
Mhm.
because you're right, like, a lot of people do think, "Oh, we need to replace all these things because they're out of code."
Mhm.
But, yeah, the knob and tube is, super important to address, because it starts fires, right? That's why,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. They're just known to start fires.
and they're 100 years old. I don't even know
Yeah.
what year did they come out, do you know?
Yeah. Gosh, I don't know what year they came out, but they're using them for a long time. Gosh, from 200 years ago up until about, dang, I've seen some in the 30s and 40s, houses from the 30s and 40s that still have it. But
Crazy. So,
pretty
yeah,
much, you
100.
know, yeah, a couple hundred years they were using knob and tube wiring.
Yeah, so it's
They came a
not
long way. They started building, different insulators and better ones, but all still the same.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, either way, it's better to just get a rewire at
Oh
the
yeah.
end of the day.
Yep.
That's crazy. Um, and then so another question that I had is, how are you different from competitors? Like, do you do anything differently, or
Um, so most inspectors do a pretty good job. Most of them are pretty thorough. Um, I guess what would set me apart would be, I don't know, I everything I get into, I really get into, and so I'm constantly learning. I know a lot of people might say that, like, oh, I love learning and stuff, but no, I'm one of those weirdos that like to really just, I want to know why and how and why the why, and question why the how and all this stuff here. So and I do that with pretty much everything. When I read the Bible, I don't want to just, if someone tells me something, it's like, well, why? And okay, I understand that explanation, but how can you support that, theologically and historically and archaeologically? And so, so I'm the same when it comes to inspecting, which is one of the reasons why I started litigating cases because, there's a couple other inspectors out there like Jeff Adams and Mark Eberwein who litigate cases against bad engineers and bad builders, and I got on a case with Jeff Adams against a builder, and so of course now this builder doesn't like me on their job sites anymore, but they can't kick me out of there because I'm being hired by their client. But yeah, so I guess that's one of the things that would I guess would set me apart. Just like I like being able to answer every question that someone has, and if I don't know the answer, it's one of those things that, like, I need to find the answer. I'm going to call that person back and tell them what I did find. But yeah,
yes.
so.
Yeah, and I can tell you, like, just from personal experience, I love working with you because you are so thorough, and then you almost always get the inspection report out the same day, which is awesome. I mean, it might be midnight, but we get it the same day, and that's
Mhm,
really great. It's super helpful, and then you're always available for questions, which is just so amazing. Like,
mhm.
it's tough to find an inspector, and that is as great and knows as much as you do, which
Yeah.
also oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that also because I know you mentioned you love learning, so it just made me think, like, do you have a particular book or something like that that you're reading now, or that your favorite book that you would recommend?
Outside of home inspecting?
Yeah, just any book in general.
Oh gosh. Okay, there's man,
Well,
there's
we can
so
keep it easy and put it into home
oh no,
inspection.
no, I've got a bunch. So on the inspector side, of course, you got the International Residential Code, and then you got the commentaries to the code and all that. But
No, I don't want to hear about those books.
yeah, yeah, those books are great. But I've been reading. I'm actually in the process of reading a couple of books right now, but it's more like I mentioned earlier on the theological side. So whenever I read for instance, when I read the Bible, I want to know, okay, well, what did the actual Hebrew word, for this, what was the this and that, and how do I know that there's not been an error in that? So there's this book I'm reading right now. It's one of those 500-page uh, books. It basically goes into textual criticism, and it it oh my gosh, there's so much. It's called Myths and Mistakes in textual criticism. So it's basically these really smart guys who do nothing but study Hebrew and Greek and uh, uh, biblical text, and they pick apart the other theologians, like all the stuff that people thought they knew, all these commentaries and things like that that people have come out with. These guys are just either debunking or they're confirming all of this stuff here. And it's just to me, that's like super, super interesting. So I'm in the middle of reading that, besides a couple other things. But
Wow,
yeah, that one's really cool because it's just amazing, some of the stuff you come across.
that is cool. I think I remember you talking about writing a book too. So,
Actually, I finished it. I finished writing it, and it's called "Did You Know?" And so basically, it's a little 60-page book, and it's called "Did You Know?" And it covers pretty much all of these crazy things that the Bible predicted before it was ever known scientifically, or it's not just the cookie cutter or those little low hanging fruit type items. There's stuff in there that tackles, everything from Big Bang to genetics. When we get into the genetics, how can we all come from a man and a woman? So it gets all into that too, genetically, and so it's really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. And I'll share one thing because I think this is super cool. So in the Bible in Matthew 27, 26, 27, roughly, when it talked about when Jesus was on the cross and he gave up his last breath and it was finished, the sky went dark for 3 hours, it says in the Bible, and there was an earthquake. Well, there was about 10 outside biblical sources that are hostile to Christianity that confirm that it actually happened. And not because they're saying it happened, because they're trying to debunk why it happened. So you have these people like Thales. He's a Roman historian from roughly 55 AD, about 30 years or 20 years after the event. And he was there. He was an eyewitness. And he wrote in his writings that, yes, there was an earthquake and the sky did go dark for 3 hours. However, it could have been nothing more than a solar eclipse. You just confirmed it happened. And if you look on NASA's site, you can look at all solar eclipses. The longest one on record right now is only about 5 minutes. The longest one ever will be 7 minutes and something in like 60 years from now. But he just confirmed, this Roman historian who was against Christianity, they're killing Christians at that time, who confirmed that it actually happened. It's like, that's mind blowing. It's like, what in the world? Okay. So it actually happened the way the Bible said. It did go dark for 3 hours. So there's that kind of stuff in there. It's really neat.
yeah, it sounds super interesting.
Mhm.
And how can somebody get it? Like if they wanted to
Yeah,
get
so I
their
finished writing it. We're getting it illustrated right now and then edited. And
Oh,
then yeah, so
awesome.
it's a process, so I'm trying to get illustrations put in there so it's easier to understand when you're reading. You have something illustration to look at when you're reading, and then I got to get it edited. Make sure I didn't say anything weird or didn't make any sense. And then that's it. You get it published and
Well,
start.
I'll be on standby for that when that's finished. I'm excited. I've been hearing about it for like I think years, right?
Yeah, I've been working on it for about a year and a half now, almost
Wow,
2 years. Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, 2 years. Gosh, yeah, it's been about 2 years. But yeah, so I finally finished the content of it, and now it's just working out all the little things. But
Very
and the
cool.
whole point of that is not to try to make money off it. I just want to get into people's hands. Just
Mhm,
check this out. Check this out. You know,
mhm.
did you know? Like, look at this. And so every one of the pages is did you know? And there's a topic. Next page, did you know? There's a topic. So pretty cool.
Nice. That sounds like a entertaining book. I would like to read it for sure.
It's really cool. It's really cool. I can
So,
send. I can email you the rough draft that I have right now. So
okay, yeah,
yeah,
I'll take a look at
yes,
it.
I'll send it to you so you can just look at it. It's pretty cool.
Thank you. That'd be great. And so also I wanted to, promote your business. How would somebody be able to get in touch with you if they wanted an inspection or wanted to, talk with you more? What's the best way to reach you? I'm going to put it in the comments.
Yeah, they just call. Just they when they call, more than likely they'll call me directly. Um, yeah, phone calls best. Because I don't really pay too much attention to Facebook. I have a Facebook page, but I rarely ever get on there. And so calling would be best. Either call or text or email.
Okay. Am I putting your number down? 210
Mm-hmm. 557 0944.
0944. Awesome. Yeah, because of course I want to make sure that you get some business out of spending all this time with me. And and I did want to also ask what your favorite thing about your job is. Like, what do you love most about being a home inspector?
Hmm. Let's see. I could give the cheesy answer, like to help people, but no. I actually enjoy it. For me, like whenever I go out on an inspection, I only do 2 inspections a day. A lot of inspectors they'll do 4 and 5. I only do 2 because I don't want to rush. I want to just get in there and take my time. And every inspection is almost like a little CSI investigation. I'm always like I don't know. My brain works that way. So I like getting in there and it's like, trying to figure everything out. It's like, what's happening here? Like, let me take a look over here. And then I'll try to figure it all out. Every now and then I'll get stumped. I'm like, but most of the time I'm like, aha, I know this was because of not just that, but look at this and look at that, and so it's kind of, I find a little bit of joy in it, and it's not very stressful. And then of course, it helps people, and I like talking to people, and I like meeting people. So I like just you know getting out there, and I just help someone with their house, and now they'll be grateful and thankful, and that's all the things I need, and yeah, so that's what
Oh,
I enjoy about it.
I love that. That is perfect. That's a great answer. And
Mhm.
I mean, it shows that you're passionate about your work and maybe you should be a CSI agent. Who knows? You just never know where you're going to go next, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, cool. I really appreciate your time. I know we went longer than we were expecting, and I know you probably have a couple of reports to write up. So I will let you get going. But thanks again, and I hope that you can get some business, or maybe somebody will buy your book in a few months once it's out.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And if anyone has any questions about the book, they can call me directly too. So, but yeah, I'll definitely send you a copy. And I appreciate this. It's pretty cool. I enjoyed it. So,
Good.
and
Maybe I'll have you on again and see what crazy thing you find, like in a couple, like in 6 months or something. You might find something different, right?
oh yeah, yeah. There's so many things. I just don't have enough time to even list them. But yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Chris. I'll be in touch. I'll talk to you later. Take care.
All right. Take
Thanks
care, Ty.
everybody for watching.
All right. Bye.
Bye.